Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
So, Nick, you know what we missed in the last episode was to discuss that crazy alien intro to the Mac Mini.
Would we have started where Tim pretended it was flying over his head?
I was just like, it was cool. It was kind of Pixar-like, and I hadn't seen anything like that from Apple for, I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. So, yeah, I kind of wish that now your Mac Minis could levitate around. Do you remember back in the Flubber movie and Weibo, his little assistant that flies around? I think of the Mac Mini like that.
If it was I would think of it as levitating like one of those magnetic speakers where it's just got a base underneath it and then levitates in thin air would be pretty cool.
Yeah. Speaking of other things that are pretty cool, Apple have just been awarded the Eleanor Roosevelt Award by the Center for Hearing and Communication, and this is because of their major strides in creating accessible technology for people with disabilities, which we have touched on that factor here and there about Apple, and it's always just great to see some recognition in this area.
Yeah, they definitely do a lot, and they have to consider a lot of things, like even switching technologies like from Touch ID to Face ID that it has accessibility implications. So yeah, it's definitely pretty cool that they're being rewarded.
Definitely. Now, how would you feel about proposing to Michelle again?
Oh man, if I could afford this ring, I definitely would.
So what's this about?
So it's not the first time, but Sir Johnny Ive is collaborating with the Red Foundation. They do a charity auction around once a year, and him and Mark Newson, who I think he also works permanently now at Apple, but he's Johnny Ive's friend and the Apple Watch designer. They created a diamond ring, which is literally a ring just made out of diamond. So, it's pretty cool, but it's definitely out there and slated to sell for, a hell of a lot of money.
Ooh, I do think it does look a bit better than that certain yellow shade of iPad that was released.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that iPad. I remember the desk which he designed, which was cool. Pretty cool.
The desk was
and then the
nice.
Red Mac Pro, which sold for like $945,000. I'm gonna say dollars. Could have been pounds, but it was at least dollars. So yes,
it was up there.
Yeah, that was also really cool. But I wonder how that owner feels about it being outdated now with the new Mac Pros coming.
Well, I guess it's like having the gold original watch.
Yeah, I was going to say you can line up behind them, and then the gold. Well, it was yellowy gold iPad Pro that he designed. But what I liked about it was the special cover that it came with. I'm pretty sure it came with this nice midnight blue type.
Yes,
thing.
it was dark blue. Yeah. Okay. So we have one main thing to focus on in this episode, but before that, you and I went head-to-head in an Apple Watch 7-day activity challenge. So, yeah, you invited me. So would you like to give some details on how this went down?
Yes. So it was I'm pretty sure it was on a Friday that it started.
So you invited on a Friday, started on a Saturday.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So it all from my side. It all started on a Friday.
Yep.
I had a couple of drinks at work, and I was looking through over my awards tab in the Apple Watch, in the activity app. And so somehow I noticed that different people have different, if you have a competition and you beat someone, you actually get a different badge per person that you beat. It's customized.
Yep.
So I don't know how Apple actually generates it, but it's all these 3 calorie bars and a star and a gold part of the shield. Anyway, so I thought, I wouldn't mind another version of the one that I already have, because Michelle and I compete every week. So
really?
I thought,
Wow.
Okay, let me see who I have on activity sharing, who else I have on my Apple Watch. So obviously, I decided to ask you if you want to compete, to which you were happy to do. And I guess Yeah, it all started then we started actually you have 48 hours to accept, and then obviously you do it immediately. So we started on the Saturday, and I've been doing like these Nike Plus Run Club coaching things. So that I just changed phases from I did initial 4-week one. Remember, I had said that I wanted to use the Apple Watch Series 4 to get back into running, and I'm happy to report that it has actually been successful. It doesn't have actually any more features than Series 3, but I'm much more motivated with my Series 4. So,
hang on.
Anyway, yep.
You never actually announced that you got the Series 4.
Didn't I?
No, that was all up in the air beforehand as to whether you were going to get it, and yeah, I never actually asked you after that.
But I had told you, right? Not on the show, but I had told you, or?
I don't think so.
I thought I said, I remember asking you on the day whether I should get the Milanese Loop or the Sport Band. But yeah, anyway, I got the Series 4 ages ago. So I'm now living the bezel-free life.
Nice. Anyway, yeah, let's continue.
Cool. So obviously we started on that Saturday. It was aligned with one of my Nike Run Club runs. So I think I got a pretty decent start at 4:19. I was pretty happy.
Did you see the score? I
yes.
got 4:19 also, exactly. What are the chances?
Yeah. Well, I thought it was more than just by chance. So yeah, I guess I think maybe I'll just give a quick high level from the way that I understand points are allocated. So the maximum number of points you can earn per day is 600 points, right? Yes. You get 100 points for every 1 point for every % of your move goal that you get. So if you reach a move goal, you get 100 points, right? Mm-hmm. Obviously double, triple up until a maximum of 400 points. 12 stand hours in a day is equal to 100 points, and 30 minutes of exercise equal to 100 points. Now, to my knowledge, those get multiplied for every ratio of that you do. It's prorated. So if you get for every stand hour, you essentially get 9 points.
Yes.
And for every 30 minutes, if you do 60 minutes, to my knowledge, you get 200 points.
Yep.
So up to a cap of 600 per day. So as you said, 419. And yeah, I was feeling pretty good when I went to bed with that. I was like, yeah, good score. And I hadn't really thought about I know that Apple intends it to make you competitive, but I was just I'll just do my normal daily activity, right? So yeah, I guess one of the things that I'll mention now, which probably became more evident later on, was the time difference, right?
Yes.
So obviously you're in WA, so you're 3 hours behind, and I actually think that gives quite a huge advantage because you actually get to see and potentially match or beat the score that I get. Yeah. So do you want to talk through maybe how the middle went when it because there was definitely a turnaround point.
Yeah, so this is interesting. So Saturday we ended up getting exactly equal points. On Sunday you went one better than me, and I was like, okay, the point of it's 40 or so points. And then on the Monday, you just sneaked past me again. And then on the Tuesday, you kind of raising the bar further and further. And then I thought, okay, no, I'm just going to go for a extra long walk this night. And then I end up overtaking you. And then I think that really triggered something, because after that, it was 600 consecutively. So...
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun. I remember, so as I said, the time difference makes a big difference because, so when I went to bed, 504 points, I was super happy. I saw you had already done, so it started getting competitive at this point. I saw you had already done your 3-kilometer walk for the day. So I figured, oh, okay, I'm pretty well ahead. I can go to bed and I'll be fine. I had planned on doing a run the next morning, but I woke up around 3 o'clock in the morning. I often wake up in the middle of the night, and I was like, oh, let me check, what the scores are. So I saw you had smashed me in the day before. So definitely, as you say, triggered a competitive streak in me, and then decided to double. I'd planned on a 5K the next morning. I just decided to double it. I just kept running really, and then ended up doing a 10K, which I think, yeah, from then on we both pushed right until the end and ended up being really close sum total.
So basically, we had a 20-point gap difference overall up until the end of Tuesday, and then after there, basically the way that you solidified your lead was just to max your points each day. And and even though when it came to the last day, I knew that you'd already maxed your points and I hadn't, I was like, well, I at least want to say that I tried my best, so then I maxed mine too. And so we finished with that 20-point difference, which is great. But that was just the funniest thing, because on the Tuesday, I was like, oh, sweet, I'm ahead of Nick now, for that day, 20 points overall difference. And then the next morning, I was like, oh, I wonder what Nick's done. 10K run. I was like, that bastard. Like, I was just like, how the hell am I going to do that? It was like laughable. I was telling everyone at work, I was like, oh, I'm doing this activity challenge, and my podcast co-host just smashed a 10K in the morning. And yeah, so I end up that day, I did a 5K walk at lunch. And then I had band jam that night. And I wasn't expecting I'd even max my points out, but just from playing, it ended up asking me if I wanted to record an outdoor run. And so I essentially recorded a 3.5K outdoor run without actually leaving the drum stool. So,
oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, and those combined maxed me out to the 600. So yeah.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun.
On the Thursday night as well, I didn't get a chance to do any walk at lunchtime or anything, and you already maxed out your 600, so I did a 9.5K walk at night time. Like, I came home at about 9:30 or something.
Yeah, you posted your dog was quite tired.
He was tired, yeah, he was. I felt really bad for him. So, but that was cool. That was something I'd never sort of really done before. And yeah, Friday I literally only just snuck in. So I went for a walk at lunchtime. I went for like around a 6 or so K walk later that night, and I still wasn't quite at the 600. I ended up getting it in through that additional stand hour after 10 p.m.
Nice.
So it turned 10 p.m. and I was jumping up and down in my office, and then it ticked over, gave me the 9 or so points or whatever, and I got to the 600. So
yeah,
it was interesting. I noticed you did a table tennis one. Was that right?
Yeah. So I often play table tennis at lunch. It's like a lunchtime routine, but yeah. So I didn't know that Apple Watch could actually track table tennis as a workout. So yeah, definitely be logging that in the future. Obviously it helps Apple with the categorized data, but yeah, it's a massive workout. Like, you think, table tennis is just like you're around a tiny table. It's really quite intense, but yeah, it's
yes,
definitely like, yeah, even if I look at my average heart rate compared to when I go for, say, like a long walk, the heart rate for table tennis for like an average period over an hour is much higher. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely a workout there.
So I definitely recommend doing activity challenges. They work, I think. I didn't expect to actually do as much exercise as I did, and it was a lot of fun. And
same.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. So I definitely recommend it if you haven't actually tried it out to try it out.
I'm not really sure if I could do it like week to week. Like, I don't know if the novelty would wear off if someone was obviously better than someone else, but yeah, this one was at least fun.
Yeah.
Okay, iPad Pro. You and I both have the 11-inch iPad Pro, so let's break it down and just putting it into some different categories of the types of things you look at with this new device. So let's start with the design. How do you feel about it as you hold it in your hand, and the weight of it and the screen size?
Yes. So I might just start by like mentioning how I actually first experienced the product. So I knew that I wanted to go in and get one from JB Hi-Fi, which is like, I guess, a large majority of a large number of our listeners aren't from Australia. So although we are Australia focused, I might just say that's like our local electronics retailer. So anyway, I went there and they had both sizes of the iPad laid out, and I was seriously considering the 12.9 inch because I have owned one before. I absolutely love Photos. Photos is my favorite app on an iPad, and I'll probably change over time, but currently I love looking at photos on my iPad. So I really wanted that bigger screen, but it was occupied at the time, and I'd already phoned ahead and asked them to keep an 11-inch aside. So I picked up the 11-inch, and I was immediately struck by how nice it feels in the hand. It's so incredibly light. Like, a lot of people mention that it's light, and I think the reason that it feels so light is because it's perfectly weight balanced. So like the center point for the weight is the Apple logo at the back, and it's equal all the way around. So that makes it really easy and nice to hold. And so because I was eyeing out the 12.9 inch, I thought I'd have some regret, but I'm actually really happy with the 11 inch. The screen size is great. Photos look absolutely amazing. It's such a great experience. You can just throw it in any backpack or large handbag. So I love it, and I have no regrets. It's my favorite iPad design ever, and not only because of the front bezels, but I really like the way it feels when I hold it. So yes, it is definitely a fun iPad and a really good looking iPad in my opinion. I love the square edges.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's just given a whole new refreshed approach to the iPad, and I just absolutely love holding this thing. The only thing I have found is the one downside, at least to me, is that it is a little bit harder to pick up straight off a table, I think. That being said, that's not that much of an issue. The bezel size, while you had people complaining about, oh, why aren't they as thin as the iPhone bezels and that sort of stuff, I'm like, well, two things. If that was the case, you'd have a notch. And also, just given the nature of an iPad and how you pick it up, I think that bezel size is ideal because it means you're not actually touching the screen per se, so there's no accidental swiping or touching or opening apps or anything like that. And yeah, for me, the 11-inch just hits that perfect point between it being large enough, in terms of as a tablet device, as well as the fact that it isn't. I didn't go the 12.9 because I didn't want anything like scaled up apps or it being, say, too close to my 13-inch MacBook screen size. So, yeah, they've really hit it home with that. And while I have enjoyed this 9.7-inch iPad that I got a couple of months ago, I think the 11-inch is just it's that perfect compromise between what I'm looking for.
Yeah, I can definitely see how it is harder to pick up. One thing that does help a little bit is the camera bump, but aside from that, I haven't actually got my hands on the smart keyboard yet, and I hopefully will be getting that tomorrow. But most of the time I'm picking up my iPad from where it's resting open with the smart keyboard. I leave it in that orientation. So, it's propped up like a laptop. And so I don't usually have that issue because I'll just slide two fingers in the sort of triangle that's created by the keyboard and the iPad, and then two fingers above and pick it up like that. So, I have experienced that it's a little bit harder to pick up, but it won't be a long-term issue for me.
Yeah, it's not a deal breaker at all. So the display itself, this is cool because I haven't seen the 10R yet. So this is my first experience of a liquid retina, and I think it looks fantastic. The colors on this thing are really captivating. And this has kind of helped me not yearn so much for an OLED iPad. Also, the fact that an OLED iPad, given the cost of the panel, would just I kind of shudder to think how much that actual cost would be overall. And yes, this has definitely made me realize how much I missed ProMotion back when I had my 10.5 inch and then sold it. Man, ProMotion is damn cool. The only thing that I'm finding so far, which I hope that updates come out for it, is you just have a lot of letterboxed apps, and that's not too bad because it's just a strip of black at the top and bottom, and they put the status stuff there anyway. But it's more stuff like, say, Lightroom, which is such a commonly used Adobe app, is still letterboxed in the way that it's like a 9.7-inch app sitting inside an 11-inch space, so there's black to the left and right. So I really hope that there's an update. Yeah, I hope there's an update there. Didn't stop me from using it, but that mixed with just the rounded corners and everything, and it being uniform, and it's just so tasty. And I've even noticed the split screen now has little rounded corners on it too, which was interesting.
Ooh, I did not see the split screen one. I'm going to definitely check that out while you... Oh, yes, that is very cute. So, on the, Liquid Retina, it's definitely like, okay, so the color gamut is the same, the resolution is the same, but like in terms of the display, the extra screen size is definitely like noticeable for me. It just definitely feels large enough. The rounded corners, like if you watch some of the videos that are mention how Apple does the rounded corners and like nerd out about it a little bit, they're pretty cool. One thing that I heard people mentioning was that the radius of the curve is different to the radius of the curve for like the
dock.
Oh, well, I thought it was like for the display was different to the case, but I don't actually see it. I don't see like that at all. So
No.
I don't know. Yeah, few different things.
I think some people.
Yeah,
yeah. I think some people were complaining about the radius of the corner of the dock doesn't quite match into the larger version of the screen. But I said that depends on the dock size, because the dock size changes depending on how many apps are in there.
exactly. Yeah.
So it's a bit of a redundant argument.
Yes.
But yeah, I certainly don't see the case, and that everything looks great to me.
Yep. So, and then like you don't see any pixelization like around the corners because Apple like makes the pixels essentially like there's some fancy words that people use but I'll just explain it, I guess, in a little bit more of a simple way. It's just, so basically the pixels become smaller as they get closer to the edge so that they can make these little this little rounded corner instead of having like these large squarish pixels that force like a zoomed in Microsoft Paint effect. It's much like it's like if you did that but then you had smaller dots in between. So yeah, they definitely did a great job on both the iPad Pro and the iPhone XR rounded corners. And yeah, what more is to say about the display? You know, it has all the things that I've mentioned for the past year on why Apple's tablet displays are amazing, and I have no complaints here.
I'm absolutely marveled by this every time I use it. It's still fresh for both of us. It's been less than a week, but yeah, it's just it's brought a whole new excitement to iPad for sure. So people have been talking about in their reviews the speakers. So have you actually tried the sound out?
I have to admit that I haven't really. I've watched so much stuff on my Apple TV. That's like my main viewing device for media, and I have so many HomePods, I don't use it for music either. So I haven't. Can you tell me a bit more about how they sound?
Yeah, so the only reason I did it was because people were talking about it in the reviews. It sort of didn't even dawn upon me that's like sort of like one of the last things I was thinking about, right? And yeah, it's definitely the best sounding iPad yet. I loaded up Apple Music, turned it right up to full and no distortion. The bass was quite well rounded, and the volume was definitely a significant boost over previous iPads. Obviously, it's not going to rival your HomePod, but in terms of the form factor of an iPad and the fact that people just usually associate tablets and phones with having not having great sound, yes, they've done a very impressive job. So I'd love to use it in the way it's probably mostly intended, and that's to watch basically watch a movie on it and just see how that goes with these 4 stereo speakers. Yeah,
it's pretty cool. Have you tried out like any music making apps like GarageBand on the iPad?
No, but I will. It's just one of those things that it's like there's so much to explore, but I just haven't had the time yet. But I'd imagine that by next episode I'll have more to talk about.
Cool.
Okay, so yeah, you said you didn't get the keyboard yet, so I guess I'll...
Yeah, I do have one point just on the keyboard, and that's actually on the software keyboard. So one thing that I've always envied about passing on my 12.9-inch iPad to Michelle is that I lost the top... like the full-size keyboard. So the 12.9-inch has like this tab button, caps lock, and it has like a number row and some extra cool stuff, which the 9.7 and 10.5-inch iPads did not have. Now the 11-inch iPad is software keyboard is actually like a hybrid of the two, where it gains the caps lock and tab, but then it doesn't get the number rows. So I was actually going through a phase in learning to make apps where I was trying to figure out how to do keyboard extension apps. And one of the things that I was trying to learn and then like moved on to different projects was trying to make this full-size iPad keyboard, which now I don't really need to do. So obviously I will be getting my keyboard folio, but at the end of the day, if you do use the software keyboard, you will notice that it is a little bit easier. One thing I've had trouble with is like deactivating caps lock. I just don't know if it's like not in my muscle memory, but I've been typing a lot in caps lock accidentally. So
yeah, that sometimes happens to me. I was taking notes with it today at work, and certainly the addition of the tab key is as being a great addition. And I've gotten so used to swiping down, to use numbers in place of it not having a number row that, I've sort of been doing that for the past couple of months anyway, that's sort of come natural. So I just love the fact that, because of the screen size, it's also that bit wider. And it's just nice to use.
Speaking of the swiping down, so I use Swift Playgrounds on the train to like prototype some things that I'm working on, and then I can implement them in apps or mini projects at a later stage, right when I get home and get access to my laptop again. And one thing that I've noticed recently, like in between the last update, was that on Swift Playgrounds, so they have like a different software keyboard, which I think actually came out before the like current version where you can swipe down for different keys. It all originated in Swift Playgrounds with like special coding shortcuts, right? And those like let's say brackets and slashes are in different positions to the normal software keyboard. So there was a bug where it would display one drag option, and then when you did it would give it for the other keyboard, so you're never getting the correct drag. So I kind of like lost faith in my drag downs, but I always use it for numbers. But I'm so happy to announce that Swift Playgrounds was updated today with a fixed software keyboard. So if you hadn't, you'll no longer experience the really annoying issue.
Well, that is good news. But in terms of actual cases itself, I have the Folio case, and the magnet fit is fantastic. Having a case not covering the sides on an iPad is just something that I've wanted for so long, and it really is, as I described in the last episode, a tech sandwich. I was almost tempted to bite into it. Just the way that it fits so flush, and you're so confident with like the magnetic hold is excellent. Just basically, I mean, we can't really talk about the multi-angles for typing with the keyboard case at the moment, but typing on the Folio is similar as before, but it just has helped a lot with that larger on-screen keyboard. And I guess the only thing that I was a little concerned with at the start is the fact that because of where the pencil attaches, it actually sits at the bottom, but there's enough space with the thickness of the iPad and the Folio that your Apple Pencil's just sort of resting against the surface quite gently. And that's it's easily for me the best iPad case yet. So
awesome.
I'll be keen to hear what you think when you get the keyboard.
I'm sure I'll love it, but I can't wait to get my hands on it.
So USB-C, do you have any adapters that work with this yet?
Yes, I'm using one now to record this podcast. So I have USB-C to USB-A, which plugs into the mic. And it's pretty cool. I have that because of my MacBook. So that's the only USB-C cable adapter that I need and have ever used. So that's pretty much it.
I am an idiot. I only just realized then I'm currently using a USB-C dongle with USB-A ports and a HDMI port and that on my MacBook right now that I could very well be using with my iPad, which would have avoided me ordering a $99 adapter. Oh my goodness.
Oh, wait. Did you order it from Apple?
Yeah, I ordered the Apple one and it's like on its way.
Cancel.
Oh my. No, I can't. It's
So what does the new one that you ordered do?
It's got USB-A port, a HDMI port, and USB-C pass-through.
So is it the exact same
got,
keyboard? I mean, the exact same adapter?
No, the adapter I've got with the MacBook Pro is a third-party one.
Oh, right. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Like different brand, but much the same setup, right?
Yes.
Oh well, that's funny. Oh well, I've got 2 adapters now. Welcome to Dongle City. Well, hey, it's cool. At least I got an official Apple one. I can feel a bit special about that. So, have you actually tried charging any other devices from this iPad Pro?
No, I have not. I can imagine that I will use it to charge my AirPods, though. My phone lasts all day, so I'm pretty sure I won't use it for that.
Well, I did test it and used it for charging my iPhone 10 and the Siri remote as well. So that works.
My Siri remote does need to be charged on less than 10% battery, so great idea.
Exactly. Okay, Face ID. Working in any orientation. This, like, it's not like it makes the phone feel restricted, but it's just so free being able to pick it up from any angle with Face ID. Any iPad with like a Touch ID home button now feels so archaic in comparison. How's it been working for you?
Oh, I loved Face ID on the iPad. It's so natural and convenient. I especially love Face ID for like forms and other things that aren't the lock screen, because like with the lock screen, you're already I don't have my keyboard case yet, but you're already interacting with the display. Whereas like if you're filling in passwords or entering in your banking app, you don't want to have to touch anything else. You just want to like click login, have it recognize you and continue, right? And that is such like a much better experience with Face ID than it is with Touch ID. So I love Face ID on the iPad. I have no complaints. I initially was covering the camera like in the first few minutes of holding it, but got over that very quickly and I love it.
And they've also added in some more instructions, like telling you obviously with the camera being covered or being too far away, and that's there's just nice little additional bits of guidance that will kind of help ease people into it. So the camera bump, I actually think this is one of the best looking camera bumps yet. How about you?
I have no complaints about a camera bump. Like, you know, devices have had these for years. People need to get over it. I'd rather have a good camera and have a tiny little bump that never affects me, especially when I'm using a case, than have like a worse off camera, because the thing is, it's just physics, right? You need it. And like to hear tech YouTubers say, oh, maybe we don't even need a camera on the iPad. Like, hello, all the use cases. What about AR?
Yeah, exactly.
So yes, I just love it. It's a good camera. Why not? And you know, it's a tiny bump. It looks fine.
Yeah, I actually prefer the size of this one than the previous iPad Pro bump, which was a lot smaller. But there's something about the kind of large circular aspect to it, and the fact that the folio case kind of mirrors the iPhone 10 case with its pill shape on the back. That those being kind of like more closely aligned just feels really nice to have. Have you actually tried taking many photos with it?
Oh no, I haven't. I haven't really taken it outside of work and home yet. But when I go somewhere a little bit more exciting, I might just. I have an iPhone XS. Like, I don't know. It's just I think I'm a bit spoiled. So
yeah, sport for choice there. My first experience with Smart HDR, and so I took it outside and I took a photo straight at the sun, and yeah, there was definitely a significant difference between, you know, me taking the same picture with the iPhone 10. And even things like I just took some test photos of like my kids running outside, and they sort of like ran under the patio where it can be shadowy, and I could see more of the detail where the shadows kind of hit the face. So that's definitely working really well. And I took some portrait selfies, and they're pretty decent. So I mean, it always feels a little bit weird taking a selfie on an iPad-sized screen, because you're like, damn, this is really large, and you're like, oh, do I really look like that? But it works though, so there is that.
Have you recorded any Animoji or Memoji with it?
Not yet. Oh, I knew I was missing something. Yes, because you know I love my Memoji. So, yep. I actually should check if it's synced over.
Mine did.
Okay, so the performance. Have you done anything in the way to kind of like try and test out its performance?
Yes, I've played around with some Swift Playgrounds, so the performance has been stellar. I never have any lag, no matter what I'm doing. Everything is fluid and instant, and yeah, it's just amazing. Swift Playgrounds run really quickly, faster than any other device I've ever. It's faster than my MacBook. So like, I was trying to do some stuff on my MacBook, switched it over to my iPad Pro, and like immediately was able to get the results that I was looking for, and so, like the code syncs between the two, so I was just able to like fix it up on my iPad, run it, test it, and put it back on, like it was back on my computer, in the same amount like as I looked at it. So the performance is amazing. Everything is great. Like networking is really fast. So like I've noticed that another thing that I've noticed, the neural engine is faster. So that means that photo sharing recommendations come up like a lot quicker. So I'm getting those like within a day or like so now, whereas like sharing suggestions, I think they depend on your device being plugged in, a whole bunch of other factors. So it was at a stage where it was about 2 to 3 days on my iPhone XS. It's not that it's trying to process for that whole time. It's just when it finds a good time to do it that won't kill your battery life. When the iPad just makes that a little bit quicker. So yeah, definitely noticing a few different aspects. How about you?
Yeah, so I didn't have anything that really sprung to mind aside from, okay, I'm just going to import a whole bunch of 4K clips and just edit them. And man, there's like was between, trimming or splitting the clip or working with, different transitions and adjusting, brightness and anything like that. It worked as quick as I was doing it. Like there was hardly any lag at all between, actually setting the move and then applying it. Even things like editing high-res photos with Lightroom, that was quite instant too. Going back to the video stuff, when I exported the clip, there was definitely a massive speed improvement between that and the standard iPad that I was using beforehand. But I also have, my drawing apps, which the one I use is vector-based, so that is really smooth to use, but I don't think that is nowhere near pushing the capabilities of the iPad Pro. But ultimately for me, the biggest test will be Photoshop whenever they release it next year.
Yeah, I definitely also want to try like a game on it, because I actually do use my iPad for a little bit of casual gaming, but there's nothing too hectic that I've been doing. And like, I kind of treat games the same way I treat music, where I get really into a game or a song for like a certain period of time, and I'll play it so much or listen to it so much, and then I never look at it again like after that. So current like workflow of games does not involve like any thing graphics intensive. Like Asphalt 8 I know is a good app, which is on my iPad. I just need to fire it up. So yeah, I definitely should also test out some gaming, but I have no doubt it'll perform really well.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to try out that basketball one whenever or if that is out. So the one they had at the keynote.
Oh, that is out. I think, yeah.
That is out.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'll get onto that. So the last piece of the puzzle is not the Apple Pencil 2, but simply called Apple Pencil, second generation. And yeah, I was lucky enough to be able to sell my previous Apple Pencil quite quickly. So that was good. So I don't feel like there has been any, because you've had people frustrated at the fact they have to buy a new Apple Pencil, but the fact that they work so differently, it really warranted it. And just the experience of having this magnetically snap and charge and pair to the side of the iPad is just I can't even describe it. It's like it's the greatest thing ever, just having that peace of mind, knowing that it's ready to go, knowing where it is, and that magnetic hold is so strong that you're not even worried about it kind of like flying off or anything like that. So what's been your experience with it?
Yeah, I like much preferred as an overall solution. I must say I never really had any complaints about the old Apple Pencil charging mechanism. Obviously, we know by now I lost my Apple Pencil, so I'm happy to report that this helps reduce that like likelihood of that happening again. However, because I don't have my case yet, I've been carrying it around quite a lot, like not just throwing it in my bag, trying to really look after it. And as such, I'm holding it quite a lot with that pencil attached, and I don't find it that comfortable. So I've found myself actually taking the pencil off at some points and putting it in my pocket so I don't like knock it off while I'm walking. So yeah, it's really strong. It's really good. It's much more convenient, but once or twice when holding the device when I'm on the couch, I just don't want it permanently attached, and then I just, easy to take off and put back on. But overall, much better solution. And the actual feel is so much better. So much better. Like, yes. I like the glossy look for the time, but I'm happy that they've changed it up a little bit, keeping it fresh. Maybe should have gotten it engraved and waited that extra 10 days, but hey, who cares? It's a beautiful pencil.
The feel of it is great. The flat edge just makes gripping it that bit better. And a couple of misconceptions that I had was, one was for some reason I assumed that the tap gestures only worked on the flat edge.
Yes.
And they don't. They work all the way around because within the pencil there is a capacitive band that's from about the tip up to a third way across the length of the pencil. And so that's actually helped. I mean, anyone following us on social media would see my Unco grip that I have on pencils, and I managed to get a good compromise with having my thumb resting along the flat edge, and then I can tap on the other side with my middle finger. So that's been cool. Unfortunately, one of my most used drawing apps, Adobe Illustrator Draw, hasn't been updated to support the gestures yet. So I have tested it out in the Notes app, and it is super instant and very handy. So the potential for this is really huge.
Yeah. So Apple, like from a developer point of view, they have like 3 or 4 recommendations for things that the double tap gesture can do, like swapping between pencil and eraser, undo color picker, a whole bunch of things, right? But there's actually no hard and fast rule on what they'll accept in the App Store around the gestures. So essentially, developers can, go wild with implementing this in a way that hopefully makes sense, but ultimately will make it as a third or a secondary input device much more powerful, not only for drawing but for potentially other things. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I like that it is like an open sort of like framework for us or people to explore.
Yeah, and the one thing that it reminded me of with the pros and just how the screen is and how the pencil reacts with it is that difference of latency and stuff, and just the feel of drawing on a screen versus the standard iPad, which has worked perfectly fine. But once I've then gone back to this iPad Pro experience, I'm like, that's what I was missing. So yes. Yeah, it's positive all around. So I guess the final question is, how do you feel all of this comes together to justify the price? Because there's still, that ever nagging thing from some reviewers and stuff saying that this is a iPad over $1,000 and all that sort of stuff. So, or can be, in American dollars if you spec it up. So where do you sit with that? And the final question is with the whole iPad as a computer laptop replacement thing, which has been all over Twitter.
Yeah, so I'm gonna probably be like a bit not helpful on either of these. So on the price thing, don't get anything that you can't afford, right? But I can't tell people what they can or can't afford and like what's expensive or not. Like I'm really starting to get quite irritated with these people who are like these, reviewers that will openly, say this is expensive or it's not. And I just think that feeling like something is expensive is completely personal, right? It not only has to do with your level of like financial security, but also has to do with the level of usefulness this device brings you, right? And that's different for every single person. So all I can say is assess the value for yourself. I'm happy with my purchase 100%, because I use my iPad so much, and I know that I use it for more than most people. So like it's just unfair for me to say, it's expensive or it's not expensive. Obviously, from an objective point of view, the devices have gone up in cost. So like, assess for yourself. But for me, I think that Apple has justified the cost on this. I've always kind of wondered why iPads were cheaper than iPhones, and maybe Apple answered that like in a way that I didn't want them to, by raising the price of iPads. But if you use it for like everyday, like just light consumption, don't get the Pro. Like, I want the 4 speakers, I want the bezel-less display and the best fastest processor and display that I can get. Like, this is the device for me. If you feel like you just want a casual thing that's a bit bigger than your phone to watch movies on, there is a great option. The $329 iPad is amazing, right? So
yes, yeah. I mean, and I've obviously lived with that and used it, and it was great for note taking, great for watching stuff. When I was like on long plane trips and all sort of things. So it definitely ticked all those boxes there. But just knowing like the power within this and the current apps that I can use and the potential of what's to come, particularly with Adobe opening up this doorway with Photoshop, considering Creative Suite are my most used programs, that has got me really excited. So,
well, I guess like one last thing, sorry, I just want to mention, like in terms of it being a laptop replacement, like a lot of people are crying out for file system support. Like Apple has the Files app and iCloud Drive, right? These things work seamlessly and amazingly in the area and countries that like we live in. So like I have no issues with having a completely online file system. So for me, I won't address that. But I will say that if I look at like what Apple could do to make it a true laptop replacement for like many more people, is just a desktop class browser, like with downloads and stuff like that, which don't currently work. So that's one area where I see some improvement that could be made. But like I said last time, I'm not holding out for iOS 13 to enjoy my iPad. Like, for me, I don't need it to replace the laptop, but it does for most of my tasks.
That's much my sentiment too. I am loving it at the moment, and I do feel like there are going to be some cool surprises coming with iOS 13 that kind of push it more into that matte-like experience, I guess. So, yeah, whether that comes to fruition or not, we'll wait and see. But what I currently have is really exciting, and what is coming next is what I'm getting really amped about. So basically, Adobe have opened up the doorway to essentially more pro level apps. Pro can be kind of like up to your definition, to the iPad Pro. And so I just want to ask you, out of any current iPad apps that you want to see an enhanced version of, or maybe like Mac style apps on an iPad, or even new apps altogether, do you have any kind of floating around in your head that you think could work well on iPad Pro and you'd like to see?
Well, I know this was definitely on your list, but I will say that like somewhere, like I think Swift Playgrounds is amazing, and as I say, I use it for a lot of different things. But having full Xcode on there, where you can like build and deploy apps to App Store Connect, and like properly bring in resources and a whole bunch of things like that, I think full Xcode would be like amazing. So yeah, that's probably like one area. Then I know for like a lot of the other apps that I use at work and what I consider pro apps, they're actually just like run like on a virtual machine or like a cloud computer that we access through the web anyway. So all of that I can access from my iPad that I would use for my work and for my homework, as I said, Xcode. So that's pretty much it from me.
Well, you have one there and I have many. So following Photoshop, I am expecting at least Illustrator CC. Really hoping for InDesign CC, because that's going to be one of the biggest ones as to whether, you may ask me the question of, okay, well, what are you currently doing on your Mac that you can't on your iPad? Like, why do you still have it there? Why do you use it so much? And that would be primarily one of the main apps I'd cover. Audition as well. I mean, Audition doesn't have touch bar support yet, so I don't know if they're going to go that way. But I use that for the raw editing of the podcast. It's great with noise removal and stuff like that. So whether it's that or some other audio program, I did sort of put down whether Apple releases Logic Pro 10 on there. Premiere and maybe After Effects. After Effects, I think that'd be one of the last things I'd bring out, but a more fully fledged Premiere would be big for video content creators, because Premiere Rush is kind of cool for on the go, but it is actually missing some main features like speed control and stuff that, well, I was a bit surprised that it wasn't there. So, and I think if Creative Cloud's like the cloud storage part of that could be added within the Files app, as its own thing, like you can add Dropbox and all that sort of thing. Yep. That would be handy too. And then I think a huge one that people with video would also love to see, of course, is Final Cut Pro 10, which I'm expecting at least one like kind of major Apple Mac app to appear in iPad form next year, whether it's previewed at WWDC or not. Just something like that. I'm really kind of have fingers crossed for that. You mentioned Xcode, of course. That'd be a huge one for all sorts of developers. And I'd love for them to create if Adobe aren't going to do Audition, could Apple just finally go out there and create a podcast studio?
Yeah, for Podcast Studio, I feel like that would have to be like a clip style app where, it probably comes about as some like internal competition, or like program where they say, okay, if you want to make these, if you make something really cool and you want to like pitch it to us, sure, go ahead. And anything that they think is cool, like it doesn't come from the top down. These are like bottom up projects. And I think Podcast Studio would have to be like a bottom up project where, someone makes something really cool and is happy to hand over that, IP to Apple, and let them run with it. So yeah, but I think it's something that would be amazing. Like it would be really helpful, really cool. So yeah.
Yeah, because I want to be able to, I mean, I know there's apps like Ferrite and that, but I would love to be able to just have one that I could say, okay, I've fully done this episode on an iPad. So typically I do all the editing of that on a Mac, because it's particularly with like, as I say, stuff like noise removal and editing the levels and chopping out bits and lining bits up. If they could create like an app that made that part quite quick, whether it has some like pre-built settings, or whether you're splitting clips, you could like swipe down to quickly trim it rather than having to tap and then choose from a menu. Things like that would be really fantastic, a real on-the-go type thing. And this one is wishful thinking, but hey, why don't we just go and make a font creation program like FontLab on iPad? Just go all in with the creatives. That would be awesome. And there are some 3D programs, but I think if you had someone like Blender on board in an iPad app, because that would be huge. It was great to see AutoCAD getting a release for iPad Pro. That was mentioned and previewed in the keynote too. But if you had something like Blender on there, that would just, it's if any of these things, these types of categories line up and we start to see this stuff like next year on, it's really going to help kind of convince people with iPad Pro as a laptop replacement.
Yeah, so I just also want to go back to Podcast Studio, because that is an idea that excites me. But one other thing that Apple could do there is like have a massive tie-in with FaceTime and FaceTime audio. So like we each record our sections, I then send it to you for editing and so on, right? But if they manage like the whole end-to-end platform, obviously they could manage that recording really well, and do like so that there's one consistent lined up version of audio. That would be really, like, even if it was as two waves, but like lined up, that would be really sick. That would be amazing.
Yeah,
So
yeah. So if it could take your mic input, So rather than think of it as recording a FaceTime call, because that would just be these AirPods and earpods that we're using, rather than say like we both have Podcast Studio open or whatever, and we've got like a shared session, all synced with iCloud, and then you've got a Nick track and a Simon track, and it's recording it in there and syncing it over iCloud. So then I get your data and everything, and then just straight into the say apply your noise removal settings and stuff, do some adjusting of levels and that, some quick swipes to cut bits out, line bits up, export it with some MP3 presets, and even maybe have like chapter markers and stuff like that. That would be fantastic. Yep. I'd love that. Apple, please make that. Okay, any last thoughts altogether for iPad Pro and Pencil? I guess it's still quite fresh for us, so we'll have plenty more to talk about in the next episode, I reckon.
Yeah. I don't know if this... I was planning on making it like a last thoughts for the whole podcast, but I guess I can... It's not much different to now, but so what about Instagram Pro? Because we know that Instagram refuses to make an iPad app for viewing great photos on a giant screen. So like a lot of 20-something-year-old people and like late teens make a lot of money from Instagram influencing, and if the Instagram made like a pro app where they could manage their apps, but then like the rest of us plebs could view amazing content on an iPad, that would be a great pro app, considering the market that is Instagram advertising.
Oh, definitely. I don't know what his followers are like. I'm guessing it's massive, but I know that David Beckham has the new iPad Pro.
So does Jimmy Fallon. Had it on his show the day that it was released, was already there for BuzzFeed quiz with Emma Stone. So yes, cool. That was it's definitely already making an appearance, and massive Apple representation on The Good Place. Even Apple Watch last week. I think it was a Coach band that the guy was wearing, or Hermes band. It had like I think it was like the studded Hermes band. So yeah.
Oh, did you end up getting an Hermes band or not?
No, because I wanted either the Hermes watch, or like it was either Hermes or Space Black. So like I decided that because at the stage it looked like they were sold out permanently of that exact model, but it turns out they got stock back in. Anyway, I'm really happy with my watch, but no band, primarily because of the stainless steel lug not matching my Space Black.
Oh yes, that's the clincher. So that wraps up episode 63 of Apple Size Podcast. You can find us and other great podcasts at AuscastNetwork.com. That's AUSCAST network.com. We are also on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Of course, I'm assuming you're listening to this in your player, so hey, please subscribe while you're there if you haven't already. And if you do use Apple Podcasts app or iTunes on desktop, hey, a bit of a throwback there, please leave us a review. That would be much appreciated. And we post all the episodes to applesize.com.au. My final thought, which is a bit of a sad one, is that one of my biggest inspirations from a kid right through to teens and now, Stan Lee, the genius behind Marvel Comics, unfortunately passed away, but at the very ripe age of 95, so it's pretty good innings, I reckon.
Yeah, as you say, good innings, and definitely a respectable man. So, like a sad loss, to humankind, but I'm sure he definitely lived a good life and achieved amazing things.
Exactly. And that brings us to the end of this episode of Apple Slice. Hey, if you got the iPad Pro yourself, or if you're thinking about it, please comment on any of the posts we do, or just let us know through any of our channels, and we'd love to discuss it and get your feedback. So, cheers again, Nick, for the conversation, and I'll catch you with more iPad action next time.
See ya.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.